after the bloody clashes along the line of actual control and the massive troop build-up, China suddenly talks peace.
China and India need peace rather than confrontation. Pending an ultimate settlement, we both agree to work together to maintain peace and tranquility in the border areas.
But will China withdraw its 2 divisions from the line of actual control? Will China actually walk the talk? That's our top focus on India First.
And suddenly China is smoking the peace pipe, talking about being friends, not rivals, talking about mutual cooperation and suspicion and not being suspicious of each other. Why is China doing this? Especially on a day when the Defense Secretary of the United States of America, Mark Esper, and Rajnath Singh, the Defense Minister of India, had a conversation. Has China realized it made a strategic mistake at the Galwan Valley? Or does China think it can sweet-talk India into withdrawing its forces and then 97 days later, like in 1962, remember in July 1962, China withdrew and then suddenly attacked in October. Is that China's strategy? I'm Gaurav Sawant. We have the finest voices on China joining us on the broadcast. Focus story on the broadcast is China's ambassador to India, Sun Weidong, suddenly smoking the peace pipe. 17-minute video was released by the Chinese embassy today, and in this 17-minute long video, the Chinese ambassador to India is talking about peace and tranquility along the line of actual control. He's talking about taking the Wuhan spirit forward. What happened to that Wuhan spirit when 2 divisions of Chinese forces were amassed at the line of actual control? What happened to that Wuhan spirit when the Chinese forces attacked Colonel Suresh Babu, Colonel Santosh Babu and the other 19 braves of the 16th Battalion of the Bihar Regiment? But then once again, China is talking about India and China, their centuries-old civilizational partnership and relationship, and not letting any third country trying to impact that. Geeta Mohan and I bring you our top story tonight.
As Indian and Chinese frontline troops continue to slowly disengage at the line of actual control in Ladakh after the 15 June Galwan clash, the Chinese ambassador to India, Sun Weidong, sounded conciliatory in a 17-minute long video released on social media. The Chinese ambassador spoke of the need to not let differences turn into disputes and to restore peace and tranquility at the line of actual control.
China and India should be partners rather than rivals. For both China and India, achieving development and revitalization is the top priority where we share long-term strategic interests.
With India having initiated the process of removing China from 4G upgradation, MSME sector, road infrastructure and power sector upgradation, the Chinese ambassador was quick to insist that India should resist calls from some quarters for decoupling of trade and economic relations.
Any self-protection, non-tariff barriers, and restrictive measures against China are unfair to the Chinese enterprises, unfair to the Indian employees who lost their jobs as a result, and unfair to the Indian consumers who cannot get access to the products and services they deserve.
India has already banned 59 Chinese apps, and there is talk that the United States of America and Australia may follow suit. The Chinese ambassador said India and China should aspire to be partners and not rivals, seek peace, not confrontation.
During the Wuhan Informal Summit in 2018, President Xi Jinping and Prime Minister Narendra Modi once again stressed that the 2 countries provide each other with development opportunities instead of posing threats.
However, given the big disconnect between Chinese statements and action on ground, the Chinese ambassador's comments are being viewed with skepticism. Experts say China is singing a different tune due to multiple reasons. First, the response of India's frontline soldiers at Galwan. 2, India's quick mobilization and insistence on infrastructure development along the line of actual control. And 3, not just the banning of 59 Chinese apps, but gradually jettisoning China from India's development story by keeping them out of 4G upgradation or road infrastructure, MSME sector, and even the power sector. China doesn't want other countries in the world to follow India's example. But experts also say until China retreats from the line of actual control, there is no question about taking China at face value. With cameraman Kripal Singh and Geeta Mohan in Delhi, Gaurav Sawant for India Today.
The question remains, can India take China at face value, or is this sting in the tail? Geeta Mohan is India Today's Foreign Affairs editor. She joins me on the broadcast. Abhishek Bhalla is editor defense. He's standing by at Leh, where cold tension at the line of actual control still prevails. I have along with them, two of the finest voices on China joining me on the broadcast. Lieutenant General Gurmeet Singh is former Chinar Corps commander. He's also someone who has handled China very closely in the Military Operations Directorate. Also with us is Jaydev Ranade. Jaydev Ranade is former Additional Secretary in the Research and Analysis Wing and heads a China-centric think tank. He is the president of China Analysis and Strategy. But before I come to our reporters and guests, I quickly want to show you images of Pangong So. Pangong Lake at 15,000 feet altitude. Remember, there is an intense face-off between India and China at Finger 4. As far as India is concerned, the line of actual control is at Finger 8. The Chinese say it's at Finger 4, and that's where they'd come and deployed. But take a look at these images that we are now putting out on your television screen, and these are images taken on 3 different dates. In the first image, you notice Chinese tents, pillboxes, road building equipment and heavy vehicles at Finger 4. You also notice a boat shed and some boats at Finger 4. If you take a look at the latest image, which is of yesterday, the 9th of July, that is where you notice that all of this is missing from Finger 4. In fact, we are being told by sources in the army that the Chinese boats have gone back beyond Finger 8. The rest remain at Finger 5 at this point of time, but there is gradual thinning out of Chinese troops. What do you make of this development? I'll also get you one more report in a while from now about Apache helicopters, but I quickly want to cut across to India Today's Abhishek Bhalla, who's in Leh for more on the story. Abhishek, tell us more about the Chinese at Finger 4 to 5 area. What's the latest there? And also along other patrol points, whether it's 14, 15 or 17 Alpha.
Well, Gaurav, rapid developments have taken place in the last 3 to 4 days. Initially, the disengagement took place at Gogra Hot Springs in Galwan, and in the last 24 hours, there have been reports and sources have confirmed to us, and now satellite imagery is also corroborating that. The fact that the Chinese have moved back from Finger 4 to Finger 5. Although at Finger 5 their heavy mobilization continues, but this is in agreements that took place during the meetings in the last few days, and so similar disengagement has taken place in all friction points. So even the Indian troops have moved back 1.5 to 2 kilometers. What I've been told by sources is that in time to come, once another level of Corps Commander level meet happens sometime next week, the usual Indian patrolling will start in places where India has always been in control of territory. So that means Finger 4.
Fair enough. Stay with me for a moment. Let me also bring in Geeta Mohan.
The Indian.
Okay. Geeta, what does India make of the Chinese ambassador's statement and the timing on a day when the Defense Minister of India and the United States of America were in touch?
Well, it is significant because it is a meeting that was an annual feature, Gaurav, and now it has become a more regular feature. This is the 16th WMCC that is taking place, and the second round of talks at this in this format since the India-China standoff began. So a very significant one at that, where both sides have come out with responsible statements, unlike the ones that we'd seen when the SR talks took place, where both are talking about complete restoration of peace and tranquility. This also comes, and we've seen the Chinese statements in the past, comes at a time when the Chinese envoy has spoken, the political leadership has decided on where to move and how to move forward, and you're seeing actual disengagement at the LAC. Having said that, Gaurav, your question is pertinent and will remain so. India will continue to monitor situation on the ground. Can we trust China right now? Not really, because this is a vicious circle that we've gone on and on over and over again with China at the LAC on.
Yes.
And that's the reason why, as of now, there is disengagement. There is some semblance of peace, but it is not something that India is going to bank on, and will continue to monitor the situation on the ground.
Okay. The statement, Jaidev Ranade, if I may, when the Chinese ambassador says that we are partners, not rivals, is China, in your appreciation, speaking with a forked tongue, Jaidev Ranade?
Certainly. In fact, where were all these thoughts before May? I mean, they suddenly seem to have thought of it. And by the way, in that statement, he also mentions that China is not a warlike nation and nor is it an assertive country. This is laughable considering what happened at the Depsang Plains in 2013, in Chumar in 2014, then in Arunachal, then Doklam, and now this. So obviously, these are statements which cannot be taken at face value. And yesterday there was one similar statement in the Global Times. So they are trying to change their tune. And I would attribute that to three reasons. Firstly, the fact that the Indian Army displayed a quick response and a firm resolve, and our Prime Minister also didn't blink. In fact, he stood his ground. I think that political leadership, the resolve of the political leadership and the army was one major factor. The second is the Chinese are facing the prospect of losing the Indian market, which is probably going to be the largest market available to them, with the United States and Europe having got a very negative impression of China and gradually shutting down their markets. And the third, I would say, is that America and China in the last couple of days has started trying to make serious efforts to again befriend the United States, and their foreign minister spoke at their think tank forum yesterday, where again he said we want to make up with the United States and accept the fact that they should not try and change our political system.
So China trying to make up. Yes, China trying to make up is rather scary. And, General Gurmeet Singh, if I may, India suffered at the hands of China's sweet talk, not just in 1962 when it was Hindi Chini Bhai Bhai, but even when Chinese say that we are partners, not rivals, and our relationship goes back civilizational. So, two things. Has India succeeded in calling China's bluff? That's point one. And point two, is there an apprehension that the sting could well be in the tail, that the Chinese withdraw tactically now, we withdraw too, and then the Chinese a couple of months later, maybe this winter or next summer, come back again in a bigger way, General Gurmeet Singh?
Gaurav, absolutely. I think Chinese not only bluff, but the lies and the treacheries have been absolutely bared open in front of the world and India. And secondly, see what the Chinese ambassador has done. It's just a diplomatic exercise, but it is exactly 1 week after what our Prime Minister said from Leh. It is exactly 26 days after 15th June night. In fact, 15th June, the biggest fatality was the trust. And I would say after that, the initiative by every Indian on the boycott, action by the government on banning and barring the Chinese projects, and thirdly, entire world enjoining us in this against China process is something which has absolutely shaken them out. In fact, look, we have to be alert, we have to be prepared. And so in such a subtle way, Prime Minister said that if you want peace for your nation, prepare on the strength. And that's what we got to do. We always got to be prepared for this threat. And China remains the primary national security threat. In fact, today what he spoke, different from what he spoke earlier on 1st April 2020, when we had completed 70 years of bilateral relationship, was first he said, let's go back to right track of bilateral relation. Secondly, he said, let us turn it around, situation at border. Third, he said, let's meet halfway with the positiveness. And next he said, let's narrow down our differences. And, in a very subtle way, he also said, indication to the media, actually they don't understand Indian media and democracy. And he said, let the media be objective and positive and rational. But one thing I totally agree with you.
The media is very objective.
Absolutely.
We state facts. We state facts the way they are. We don't sugarcoat it either for our government or for the Chinese government, especially on Chinese incursions at the line of actual control. It's unacceptable. Loss of Indian lives, completely unacceptable to every Indian, and perhaps the Chinese need to realize that. But Mr. Ranade, one thing that the Chinese say is very leaves you with a sense of bad taste in your mouth when the Chinese say meet us halfway, that they will protect their integrity. Read this in context with the Chinese saying that the Galwan Valley belongs to them. What does halfway mean? Do they mean that they want to stick around at fingers 6? Do they mean that we should accept any change in status quo ante? And what should India's response be, Mr. Ranade?
Well, their foreign minister, in the statement that he issued, again asserted that Galwan is theirs. They've exercised sovereignty over it for a long time, so they say, and that they will defend their sovereignty and territorial integrity. The ambassador has said the same thing in his statement. So how seriously are we expected to take it? Because if you accept that their claim on Galwan Valley was articulated only on the 17th of May, on the 7th of May, and then on 17th of June, where was the claim earlier? So all of a sudden they shifted the goalposts. Forget talking about going back to where they were before May. So obviously their statement cannot be taken seriously, and what the ambassador is now doing is trying to protect access to the market and carrying out another act of deception.
Okay. Geeta, is our government even willing to give China a second chance, or is there now a realization after Colonel Babu and the 20 braves made the supreme sacrifice of their lives? Is there a realization in this government that China is no friend of ours? China wants access to our market, but on China's terms, without respecting our territorial integrity.
Well, that's an important question, Gaurav, and the answer is two-pronged. One is the realization and the reality that China is a neighbor and India has to deal with China, and therefore conflict and confrontation is not an option. We will have to talk and resolve the military issue at the LAC through dialogue. That's one thing. But the other decision on the economic front, there is no budging on that front. The policy decisions have been taken in the process of becoming Atmanirbhar and self-reliant. India is ensuring that not only does it ensure that there is a decoupling, which is what the Chinese envoy was talking about, and moving away from made in China to make in India, but also that India should become a major part of the global supply chain to replace China. Now, that's the bigger idea and the larger perspective over here. So on the economic front, India is going to go ahead with the policy decisions. But on the military front, there is a realization that near neighbors cannot be handled only through conflict, but there has to be dialogue and resolution at the border.
Fair enough. At the same time, India also realizes that while China occupies a place and then says, let's have status quo, that's unacceptable. And perhaps that may be the reason why India has told the United States of America to speed up delivery of defense equipment, and it's happening despite COVID-19, and some of those COVID-19 rules were kept on the wayside when the final consignment of the 5 Apache helicopters. And remember, these are known as flying battle tanks. These are also known as flying Ferraris. These are extremely potent attack helicopters. The Apaches, now the final of the 22 that India has ordered, they've arrived in India. Take a look at these images, and both Abhishek Bhalla and I have seen these helicopters fly in high altitude Leh. They've now been deployed. Of course, the final lot will also be deployed in a short while from now. But Abhishek, that's a very strong message that India sends out when you deploy the Apaches and the Sukhoi 30s and the MiG-29s and the Mirages in Ladakh. We'll defend our territorial integrity with whatever we have and whatever it takes, Abhishek.
Gaurav, you've witnessed yourself, and I'm here for the last 2 weeks, and air activity is really heightened over the skies of Leh, and even in some of the forward areas. There are sorties every day, early morning, sometimes even late in the evenings. And as far as the Apache attack helicopters are concerned, yes, now all 22 are with the Indian Air Force and they are operational. In fact, the Apaches were brought in to Ladakh when the standoff started 2 months back, and now with the latest batch of 5 also coming in. As far as the entire squadron is concerned, it was supposed to be split into 2. One was for the western sector against Pakistan, and one was for to take care of the Chinese threats. Most of these Apaches were brought in, they were flown in even before these 5 came in to Ladakh to make sure that there can be a heightened air alert as far as the China aggression is concerned.
Mr. Ranade, at this point of time, do we anticipate the threat go down, or will the threat go up either in October, November or early next year in your appreciation?
Well, I don't think it has gone down at all. In fact, the threat remains there, the Chinese menace remains there, and we'll have to wait and see. For 2 indicators: one, them moving back to where they were before May the 1st. Second, they're actually thinning out from the reserve areas. I don't think that is happening yet, so let that happen first. But knowing how the Chinese have operated, seeing the manner in which they came this time and the expense and the planning that went into it, there obviously is something else in the back of their mind which they will try and fulfill.
Okay. Fair enough. I will let that be the last word on the broadcast. We will continue talking to General Gurmeet Singh and Jaidev Ranade over the next several days and weeks, because as our experts say, the threat is not going down. It hasn't gone down one bit, even though there is a lot of sweet talking happening. The soldiers remain alert. That is all I have for you on this India Today special broadcast. Many thanks for watching.
Hi everyone, Preeti Chaudhary here. Hope you like this video. For latest news and analysis, like and subscribe to the India Today YouTube channel. And don't forget to press the bell icon to stay updated. Thank you for watching.